My name is William Russo, town resident, and I have talked to the Board of Finance on a previous occasion about how we prepare our budgets. And in particular, I want to refer to the police department budget. Recently, I went to an FOI hearing, and I asked the chief to know the number of officers who are assigned outside, basically task force, where they put in X amount of hours, like for drug enforcement, traffic enforcement, and God knows what else. The chief's response was he didn't have any record to identify the personnel, nor the dollar expenses associated with those particular assignments. And again, I was here last meeting, and I picked up the fact that apparently somewhere hidden in the police department budget we're paying for an officer's cell phone. I also picked up the cost of telephone expenses. I would ask the Board of Finance to consider carefully any appeal and demand full explanation and itemization of expenses in not only the police department budget, but every budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Russo. Just one comment on the phone thing. I know you were at the meeting and we saw some very large phone bills in different buildings. And Mandy looked into it. There's actually a company that goes out and audits your actual phone bill to see if you're getting what you're paying for. And I know she's been busy with our actual year-end audit, but it is something that the finance office is looking into, just an overall audit of our phone and internet usage and stuff like that. So I know you were at that meeting. Is there any other public input? Seeing none. Added agenda items. We do have one. The town attorney, Mr. Landolina, is here. I know our first election emailed the entire board about a DECD grant and also a DECD loan. He's here to just talk a little bit about it and educate us and see where we want to move from there. So that would be the only item, if we could get a motion to add that.
I'll make a motion to add the discussion of the DEC loan and grant under the agenda.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Carries. We're going to add that. I know everybody wanted to go first. Unfortunately, not everybody can be first. Carl does have to run immediately out afterwards, so we're going to put him right after. He'll be the first item up after we approve these minutes. So we have minutes from November 14th.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from November 14th as written.
Is there a second?
Second.
Just quick discussion. Terry, you and I were talking briefly about it. What was the one comment that you said that we were forgetting?
Retroactive?
Oh, there was a.
I wasn't sure.
There's a comment that this board went around and we polled the board that night if the 2% for non-union would be retroactive or non-retroactive. It was not voted on that night, but it was discussed that it would be retroactive. Would be the way the minutes would be, but no formal vote was taken on the 2% yet. So. Any other discussion? All those in favor of the minutes as written signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Carries. Really quick, before we bring Mr. Landolina up, budget letter. That's due out to all the boards and commissions on or before December 1st per the town charter. Mandy provided a copy of pretty much the letter that's been going out year over year over year. Do we want to make any changes to it other than the dates, obviously? Keep it as is.
Change the dates in the first bullet point under key guidelines.
in essence, while Norm's getting settled, we'd be sending out a letter once again that basically is asking for a submit a no-growth budget for fiscal year 18-19. Keeping in mind that the biannual budget was decided by the state. Windsor Locks next year is being cut. Mandy, do you know how much next? It's a slight cut. It's not a, millions of dollars a cut, but it was.
It's what's being withheld there. We're still funded with the amount, the amount being currently withheld pending the shortfall was $20,000.
No, for next year. Because it was a biannual budget. Yeah, for the biannual budget, sorry. Yeah, that's this
I
year.
have it somewhere.
I did not bring that.
I can give, can you keep moving on?
All right. Then I'll, and obviously, we'll talk about this tonight. Right now the state's in the red about $200 million in the current year that they're in, so we don't know what the climate of Connecticut's gonna look like over the next 6 months, and then on top of that, basically the next 18 months while we work through this current budget and next year's budget, so. What do you think?
But yeah, change the dates, yeah, everything changes.
Change the dates, change the email to email Steve. Mike?
Yep.
Norman? Good? Mark, you were good with that?
Yep.
Dave, you were good with
Yep.
that?
216s are going to 17 and the 2018 is going to 29.
16s are going to 18s, actually.
They got missed last time.
They got missed. Oh. And 16s are actually going to 18s.
Well, no, I wrote you right, the first sentence, but it's,
July 2017.
we're really doing the fiscal 19 budget, which is July 18 through June 19. Right?
And then, I think we're on different pages, and then the key guidelines, the 16s got to go to 18s. Yep.
And as a context, it goes to 29.
Yep. All right, Mandy, you're good? Can we get a motion on that? So we've got the guy across the page.
I motion the said changes to the letter that will submit the commissions with the correct dates.
For a second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Carries. All right. That brings us on to the town attorney, Mr. Landolina.
Good evening. For the record, Carl Landolina, Fabian Landolina, 47 Spring Street. So I had spoken to the chairman today and asked to be added to the agenda to discuss the development of the Montgomery Mill. As you're all aware, there's a zoning approval to develop the mill into apartment units. The developer has sought financing from various state, federal, and private lenders. And as part of the financing package for the mill, they've gone to the Department of Economic and Community Development of the state of Connecticut and asked for various loans and grants. Part of the package is a $4 million loan from DECD and a $4 million grant. The $4 million loan is essentially for environmental remediation at the site. The $4 million grant is part of site work, construction. The only way that the state would give those funds to the developer was to have the town act as the actual borrower and grantee of the grant. So the proposal as it stands right now is that the town would borrow $4 million from the Department of Economic and Community Development and will pass through those funds to an entity known as BC Montgomery LLC, which is an entity formed solely for the purpose of acquiring the mill property and developing it. I'm not sure if they're actually going to manage it as well. Maybe they might form another entity to do that part of it. I don't know. So BC Montgomery LLC will acquire title to the property, acquire funds from these various sources, and start the project of developing and rehabilitating the mill and these apartments. We had a conference call with all the interested parties last week. Mr. Kervick and I, along with representatives from the state's, I'll call them, for lack of a better word, bond council, Mike Patello from Updike Kelly. I don't know if you guys have used Updike Kelly in the past, bond council. But in any event, so my concern, along with Chris's concerns, is that even though the town is borrowing the money and passing it through to this entity, which is known as the sub-recipient in all of these transactions, obviously the town doesn't want to be obligated to pay this money should something happen in the development. The basic terms of the loan are that interest will accrue 1% a year until the project is completed. Project completion essentially is the issuance of a certificate of occupancy by the town of Windsor Locks. I suspect, I haven't talked to Mark, though I know it's here, but it's been my experience in other projects of this nature that you get one certificate of occupancy for the entire project. You know, like houses where you get, each unit gets its own CO because there are common areas and such. I assume that there'll be one CO issue.
Mark is waving his
Got it.
head, yes.
No, I mean, we don't get a CO until 100% of the work is completed.
That's generally correct, yes. All the units will have to be habitable and so on and so forth, the common areas and all the rest of it. So I don't know what the construction schedule is, but that is obviously years away. There is no debt service on the loan. There'll be no payments made to the state. And upon the issuance of COs or CO by the town, which is project completion, the loan will be forgiven.
Interest also?
Correct, yeah, accrued interest at 1% a year.
0.01.
1% a year. I mean, the 0.01%, and that gets to the next phase of the project. So, I haven't seen the documents. Mike Patello is drafting them as we speak. As a matter of fact, before I left, I did see an email from him with a couple of the documents in draft form. They have not been reviewed by DECD or anyone else. So, you know, obviously, we're going to look at them and make sure that the town is sort of in the middle here and just facilitating the development of the mill by acting as a borrower. And again, passing through the proceeds of the loan to the entity. I want to make sure that there are no set of circumstances under which the town will be obligated to pay this money. But during the initial conversation, everyone agreed, yes, that's the way the documents will be drafted, but we'll have to wait and see as to what the documents actually say. The town is undertaking some obligations in this process by agreeing to act as intermediary. So once you want to undertake obligations, I guess technically you could fail to live up to whatever those obligations are. So we'll have to read the language to see what default provisions would apply to the town and how they would, if we were in default, what that mean to the town. I suppose if there's a defalcation, someone from town hall created the funds and ran off with them, you know, the town, I guess, would be obligated to repay the funds. So I need to see exactly what the language is. Hopefully we'll be able to see that in the next week or so. But to me, under your charter and under state statutes, if you borrow money, that has to be approved by the legislative body, which obviously in this case would be the town meeting. So and I am going to have to write an opinion of council that says all the appropriate steps have been taken to authorize the issuance of these funds, either in grant form or loan fund form for the town. So at this point, my default setting is there's probably going to have to be a town meeting, unless there's something that convinces me in the documents that it's only a loan because that's the name on the top of the document and it's really something else. But I can tell you that's, you're going to have to do a lot of convincing for me to sign my name on a certification if that's the case. So if there is going to be a town meeting, and I suspect that the town board of selectmen to schedule something just to keep the process moving, it's been my position all along that you guys, I mean, if it's a loan, it's a loan, it's a loan, and even though there's no debt service, that you should be aware of what's going on and be part of the process. So that was the purpose of coming here tonight. Now, there's a desire on the part of the state of Connecticut and the developer to close this deal by the end of the calendar year. So that's, 4 weeks away essentially. So to see if that happens, if that's the desire.
Well, I would have a lot of questions, but it seems to me there's no point in asking them until you've got the documents and you've seen the.
Right. Now, they told me that we wouldn't see anything until December 8th or so. But I did, as I say, I think some of the documents would come over this afternoon, probably half an hour ago. So I think the state has told their council to rush, so. But again, they've done a few of these deals, just sort of pass-through deals, but they've never done one that's structured like this. Now, the other, I think, Mark, your point about the interest being .01 is that the way, there's going to be a separate agreement between the town and the developer as part of their obligations to us, that once the loan is forgiven, the town is off the hook. But we're going to have a separate agreement with the developer that they are not off the hook. And the reason for that is they don't want to have a forgiveness of debt income to deal with. That's a taxable event as far as they're concerned. They prefer not to deal with that issue. So rather than that, when the town, when the loan is forgiven by the state to the town, the obligations to repay the town are going to continue for another 40 or so years. And interest will accrue at .01, with 1/10 of 1%. And 40 years from now,
$20,000. 4 million at .01, that's $40,000. That's one.
it's .001, it's 1/10 of 1%.
.01 is what the email said.
Yeah, that's the initial loan rate, 1% a year to the state. Once the loan is forgiven, the interest rate will go down to 1/10 of 1% a year. And the interest will accumulate, there'll be no debt payments on the debt. And I guess, so my question to them was, you mean 40 years from now, you're gonna give us back $8 million? And, which is what it sounds like, but I wouldn't hold my breath. I know I can't hold my breath for 40 years though. But I suspect that they'll offer to renegotiate sometime down the road. So, but that's the way the deal is proposed to be structured. So the town will borrow $4 million from the state of Connecticut, and no debt service payments until the project is completed, and the state will forgive the loan. In addition, the town will receive a grant in the amount of $4 million. All $8 million will be passed through from town accounts, dedicated town account, to the developer when certain deadlines and thresholds are met along the way. As Scott said, until we see the documents, in my mind, it's still, at least part of it is still the loan.
Now, what happens if they go bankrupt and don't complete the work and are no longer?
So they are gonna undertake a guarantee of completion, and that's gonna be secured by a position on the property, which would probably be 3 or 4, prior superior positions on the property. So the question we've been discussing is whether or not the parent company would be a guarantor of all of these loans and financing vehicles, and sign as a guarantor on their obligations to the town and the state to complete the project. So we've got a promise from the state of Connecticut that there be, with respect to the default on the part of the developer, that those financial obligations will not return to the town. So if the project fails, we will not be financially obligated to repay the loan. What I'm concerned about is, though, that the town, again, is undertaking some obligations to act as this sort of party in the middle, and if we default on whatever obligations are imposed on us by those, under those provisions, what a default might mean to the town.
Are you able to explain this the underlying rationale the state has for this arrangement? Because obviously the straightforward arrangement would be that they would loan the money directly to the developer, so what's the underlying rationale?
My understanding is that the source of this, the source of funding on the grant and the loan are not from this particular pile of money, wherever it might be coming from, is not available to private entities. So typically, this would be, I've done a number of these in other towns where there's been a sort of a joint project where the town is sort of a partner in the project. Typically, in those kinds of situations, the town might take title to the property and then enter into an agreement with the developer to come in. So the town would have to own the property for at least one day. We've done that a number of times. That's not what's happening here, so in order to facilitate these financing sources of funding, they have to go to the town.
I may have read it wrong, and I did some research on it. I think that private entities are entitled to go and apply for it. I think the big
Well, they
caveat.
applied for it, but
Yeah, I think the big one is that if it's a pass-through and they forgive it on the town side, they're not gonna pay the income on the $4 million forgiveness.
well, that's one of the, yes,
Yeah.
that's one of the
That's what
advantages of
the
doing
town
it.
did.
But I don't think that fact alone is driving this whole train. I don't think it is. But that is one of the reasons that they don't want to be forgiven of debt, because of the forgiveness of debt income. But even on the grant side, there'd be no income to them on the grant side. They're still asking for us to be the intermediary. I think it has to be more of a source of funding, but I'm not, there are so many programs I think.
So are you looking for a Board of Finance recommendation tonight? Or, I mean, not
When's the next time you could meet so that we could have this
tomorrow?
discussion? Well, we can't, tomorrow's a special meeting, so you can't put me on. the
I can't,
agenda.
yeah, that's true.
But what I'd like to do, given that I did receive documents today, I'd like to go back and review them. Now, if I wasn't gonna get documents until the promised date of 2 weeks from now, I wouldn't be looking to take some action, but since we have some more information that's available to us in the short term, let me go ahead and read the documents, and I can come back maybe in a week. And then we could have this discussion again. But at some point, to the extent that I think a town meeting is going to be necessary, obviously I'd want your approval or you making a positive recommendation at that meeting.
If it's next week, it would be a special meeting, which this board's never afraid to come out and meet. You just have to keep me advised, and then we can get an agenda, and I can keep the board, in on it. But next week would be a special meeting, and then December 12th would be our regular meeting, but our plan is to actually have a public hearing that night,
Yeah.
to actually display the budget. 6 months late. But we're getting there.
Yeah. So,
Michael, did you have?
Yeah, can you just clarify one thing? I know you touched upon it, but when the town receives the $8 million, is the expectation for the town to just immediately turn over all $8 million to this LLC? Or is it gonna be based on some type of performance, periodic payments like you would in what I'll call a normal construction arrangement?
that's right. I'm not 100% sure my expectation, though, based upon the conversations that the town is, either whether they receive the $8 million in a lump sum, it's not going to distribute it to the LLC at one time. So that's why there's certain steps that will have to be, like a construction schedule or whatever. They need certain,
So sort of like a percentage of completion or something?
sort of
along
like
those
that,
lines.
yeah. Again, maybe spelled out more in the document that's sitting in my computer,
Yeah.
but I don't think that the intent was the town to get $8 million check and then give it right to,
Good.
yeah.
Mike, I went to the last Board of Selectmen meeting last week, and the first selectman did say that it was a performance-driven, and that all $8 million wasn't hitting Fund 40 all on January 1st, that it would be broken up in pieces, there'd be submittals and pieces like that, is the way it was said last week. The document says.
Should there be an administrative fee if the town is administering this?
That's kind of what I thought.
That's what I thought that 0.01% was.
I don't know what the documents provide. My guess is that they probably want they, but well, I'll have to look and see what, you know. The assistance agreement is one of the documents that I can get, so it should be spelled out in there.
I mean, there's probably some administrative cost to this, just from your office alone, Andy.
Well, I was just thinking it's not just town meeting, it's referendum, it's debt, correct?
It's over 200,000.
Do you automatically require a referendum over $200,000?
It's debt. We're not the ones actually issuing the debt though, so you probably have to make a statement.
That's why the, you know, it's more of a complicated issue than just.
We're taking on the debt. We'd be taking on the debt,
Taking on the risk.
just as any other capital projects that we do. This is over $4 million.
I didn't bring my charter tonight, so I don't know if it just is backed by bonds or issuance of bonds.
It might, this is not a typical bonding situation.
Right.
There's going to be no bond issues.
Right.
So,
Dave's got one.
I think I do.
Well, I mean, we can look at it, but that's.
yeah, so I think I mean, the other position is that this is not really debt, you're not really borrowing anything. I'm sure that's a position that some people might take that, again, until I'm convinced by reading the document, but, you know, I'm not, at this point, comfortable saying that's, you know, looks like a loan, smells like a loan. All right, so I'll stay in touch with Paul and
Stay
then.
in touch, and then if we have to meet next week, we'll meet next week.
Yeah, okay. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, thank you. Any other questions? All right, moving on to budget discussions. So tonight we have, I'll say in general, the building department, and I know, in an essence of saving the town some money, I know we have some paid professionals here that are getting paid hourly. We're gonna bring them up first. Then we have the senior center here, correct? Yes. And we have Phil from Public Works, right? Board of Ed and Police Department. Is there anybody I'm missing? Don't think so. All right. So first we'll take on the whole capital building department. I think there were 3 items. Yes, please.
I don't have an agenda, so is it?
I'm gonna
by
cheat because
project,
it's,
or
yeah,
do
we
you want
were
me to just start?
emailed everything and I,
Yes.
you didn't print that out, did you? Oh, did for you? So the email that I think everybody was copied on.
Okay,
We should probably start that, because that had the 3 items.
right.
Okay. So it's the Route 75 project, the Route 20 corridor project, and the Main Street on-call capital account.
Right,
So we're gonna start with the sidewalks?
sure.
Okay.
For the record, Jen Rodriguez, Town Planner and Zoning Officer. Back in February of 2017, the Department of Transportation issued its commitment to fund for the sidewalks up on Route 75. At the time, we had a certain level of engineering design completed for the project, and through the process, the Department of Transportation did require an additional level of final design. And I'll let maybe Dana take it from there, but just in general, in terms of the completion date and the project scope, that hasn't changed, and the completion date is still for November 2018. Yeah.
Good evening. For the record, Dana Steele, Town Engineer. This project includes sidewalks on both sides of Route 75, Halfway House Road to Whole County, and on the north side of Schoenposter. So, and up just the east side of 75, once you get past Schoenposter, up to Spring Street. So that scope was determined coordination with the Public Works and with the the DOT regarding the amount of grant money was available, which is basically $1 million roughly. And so based on that, we went as far as we felt that we could, but they want finished construction plans in order to move this forward. So the first step with that involves doing a survey of the area, identifying all of the property line limits, all the utility conflicts, all the existing features that we need to either work around or move or remove. And so we've begun that process, and we're nearing our 35% completion phase, which we'll be submitting at the end of the month to DOT for review. We'll get their feedback and then continue proceeding towards final design on the project.
We've talked about bicycle paths up there. Are these sidewalks going to serve as bicycle routes as well?
I don't think so. They're 6 feet wide. It's really not wide enough for pedestrians and bicycles. One of the reasons that the scope has changed is the DOT was deciding what they want to do with Route 75. And they have a master plan right now that involves some roundabouts and some other improvements. So that'll be up to them to address that issue as far as creating bike lanes within the roadway. This is strictly a sidewalk project at this point.
Are we doing anything to push the DOT toward creating bicycle paths along this road?
We have the opportunity to talk with them again soon, we can.
Well, I think it's
definitely
absolutely
important. Yeah.
necessary. I think that there's a trend toward more bicycle
Oh, sure.
use. People have been encouraged, and that's a key road, and right now, it's totally unfit for bicycle use.
Right.
But with a proper bike lane on it, you could really encourage a lot of bicycle transportation.